Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
My name's Eric Napientek. I actually live in Jensen Beach, Florida, and I'm now an independent contractor, management consultant.
Awesome. So I'm just curious, more about your business. What exactly do you do? What kind of consulting? And how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I do a very wide range of projects. I've done everything from, personnel assessment, management personnel assessments for, ownership. I've designed production facilities for food processing, including, the process flow, design of the offices, staffing, equipment placement, bidding, as well as estimates on, pro forma estimates on the financials in terms of, when the business would be up and running, what were the expectations moving forward. So a wide variety of things. Also a lot of continuous improvement, process improvement projects, such as improving production yields, labor utilization, capacities, a lot of OEE analysis, such as that. So pretty wide range. I also do some supply chain consulting as well in terms of helping companies design RFPs for, say, corrugated packaging, film packaging, that sort of thing.
Awesome.
I've been in the food business for about 25 years now. I started in 1997 as a production supervisor for a company headquartered outside of Chicago. It's where I'm born and raised. And I actually had a political science degree. And so somehow I got into food processing. All my friends were getting into financial services and software development. I decided to get into food manufacturing. So go figure. But that's been kind of like my secret, I think, to my success is that, I didn't know what I didn't know, so I'm naturally curious. So that curiosity led me to, ask questions like, why do we do it this way? Have we thought about it this way? Is there a way of doing it better? I'm also a former athlete, so, doing better just kind of in my ilk, as well as designing high performance teams.
Awesome. Well, small world, actually. I was also born in Chicago. I grew up in Buffalo Grove. So,
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right on.
So in terms of the way that you work with people, right? Because you mentioned that you're more focused on supply chain, manufacturing. Is there a certain vertical that you kind of work more with, or I guess what does that look like for you?
Can you be more specific in terms
Is there a certain food, like you mentioned, food manufacturing, certain types of food?
Yeah. I'm actually been involved. The only thing probably I haven't made is canned soup and canned tuna.
Okay.
I've worked in fully cooked, meat operations, sous vide cooking processes, all proteins, including plant-based proteins, bakeries. I helped, start up a indoor vertical farm for a little bit, and then just recently got into beverages.
So yeah, in terms of beverages, obviously that's a pretty hot space, right? But also very competitive. So how do you work with beverage companies, for example?
So basically, the biggest part right now here in Florida is fruit procurement. There's a citrus disease called greening that's really turning into an epidemic throughout the world in terms of where countries are growing, such as, Brazil's being hard hit right now. Florida is just getting absolutely decimated. They're about at 40% of the growing capacity that they were at 5 years ago.
Wow.
So what happens is this is a virus that attacks the fruit, actually. And so it causes the fruit to be prematurely drop before it ripens. And it kills trees. And it's rampant. It's rampant right now. Grapefruit, for instance, is going to be probably potentially almost non-existent in terms of being grown in Florida anymore because they're particularly being hit. So it's kind of scary right now, actually. So far, Texas hasn't been really affected that much, but that's going to be changing soon, no doubt. Mexico's starting to get hit a little bit as well. Really, the only area of citrus growing that's really not being hit so hard right now, if not at all, is California. And a lot of that has to do to, climate and geography. You have, the mountain ranges, hills and hilly. So there's more segregation between groves, whereas, here in Florida, it's flat.
Right.
And it's back to back to back to back to back. There's no real separation between groves. So once it catches, it catches. And they're just starting to test an antibiotic right now to inject into the trees, but they're just testing it. It's hard to tell. So
Right.
so mainly my work with produce, well, it's been produce basically, but beverage, juice that is really trying to help companies shore up their supply chain, but then also do better with what they are already getting. So if they're going to be getting less fresh fruit, it doesn't make sense that fresh fruit falls on the floor and is thrown away. So what can we do operationally to improve our yields and make better use with what we are getting instead of just kind of going back to, using the old methods of, there's plenty of fruit, heck with it. A lot of the juice companies, the mom and pop ones are a little bit more traditional in how they operate, less
Right.
capital, versus like a Minute Maid or Tropicana, they're, those are Coke. So, they have large capital budgets, whereas the small mom and pop companies have a little bit more,
Right.
you're constrained a little bit more.
In
So
terms of but in terms of sourcing this raw material, if it's not as available, are there other similar materials that you can get? Or I guess like what is the alternative for these businesses?
yeah, so the alternative is that, pardon me, you can get frozen concentrate, and use that in your blend. So you can still say, made with fresh juice, but you can't say made from oranges grown in Florida when you're also using raw materials from Mexico. Because there are, companies that strictly just, you can buy directly from a grower, right? But there are companies that also buy from growers and they make frozen concentrate and you use that in your recipes to kind of augment your storage of fresh fruit. So, there's not going to be many people that are saying made from 100% fresh fruit much longer.
Okay, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So in terms of like beverages or just, produce in general, like, what are some of the other trends or things that you're seeing in the market that you're currently working with?
Yeah. So actually, let me finish my question,
Sure, sure,
answer your
sure.
question. So in addition to frozen, right? I mean, there are other alternatives you can use, like tangerines so far seem to be holding up pretty well. You can use that in your blend. So there are alternatives. Plus, you can, whatever fresh fruit you do buy, if you're not like in busy season, you can put that up and store it in a cooler and it holds up pretty well. And then you bring it out, when it's time to gear back production up again. So that's the finishing of that answer. There's more blends that are kind of being designed right now, mainly and also like for like holistic reasons. So you're going to be seeing a lot more like, orange and beet juice or ashwagandha and ginseng and orange juice. So there's kind of a trend towards, healthier drinks, not just the standard, I shouldn't say healthier, more diverse, right? So just instead of like orange juice and grape juice, you're going to have, companies coming out with different blends that are a little bit more, maybe more exotic. Orange pineapple beet, that sort of thing, carrot and beet, perceived healthier options other than just your standard, orange juice, grapefruit juice, lemonade, that sort of thing.
For sure.
Yeah, so, they're going to be basically adding more value to that drink with what, some people in the public perceive as being, healthy.
Right.
Hey y'all, it's Dan Melnick, the CEO of Zing, and I wanted to share a special offer for all of our listeners. Right now, if you need software development services, we'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial. Do you need to update your website? Do you want to build a mobile app? Do you want to update something that you've been working on for a long time? We've worked in a high-level technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. So shoot me a text, 817-874-2208. Thank you.
What about like obviously many beverages now are going like in the direction of hemp or products like that. So that's something that you're seeing. I'm not sure if think about companies that you're working with, what that looks like.
Yeah, I haven't really got into hemp yet. I think it's still a very niche market segment, but I haven't really got into that. It's been mainly citrus based.
Makes sense. So obviously nowadays many organizations are using high level technology like artificial intelligence. So that's something like that you're currently using in your operations. And if not, like where do you think that they could actually add value?
Yeah, I haven't really seen many much use of AI. Really, there is a huge trend towards automation, of course, and that's been going on for quite some time, especially with the uncertainty in the workforce, right? I mean, you don't have people who want to work in factories anymore, especially in
Right.
food plants. especially ones that are refrigerated. You can work in a meat plant and it's 37 to 40 degrees and it's wet and it's damp and your work is redundant. And as a former manager, what would keep me up at night wasn't necessarily the equipment failing, it was with people failing. So we all people have to understand that we are in the people business. Even if you automate, you still have people that need to come to work, so you have to make sure you have a culture that's conducive to that. But also too, with automation, it's not just one, it's a big spend, usually. And secondly, you're not just eliminating costs, hard direct costs of the person in general, because typically, there are openings elsewhere in a facility where you're just moving that person to another job opening. But if you do have the opportunity to eliminate headcount, you're not just saving on the cost of that person, their hourly wage, but you're also saving, and that hourly wage includes could be a pension plan, their health and welfare insurance, but it's also you have to take into account that many of these positions are repetitive, so you have to worry about safety being a concern, where people are taking workers' comp and whatnot, and that's another cost that people typically forget about when they're looking at labor reduction. And not to mention just people are sometimes difficult to work with. So
that's true.
And that's also part of it too. So those are kind of like the soft benefits of headcount reduction. So automation is the big move, and it has been for quite some time, especially in packaging, whether it's in automatic bottling, automatic stacking and loading into cardboard boxes that are automatically erected, and then also placement systems when they're loaded, and then also how they're palletized, automatic palletizing. That's the big area, because it's typically, if you automate, you also have a chance to potentially increase your capacity. And typically packaging is where the bottleneck is. So that's really the big area where people are focusing on is on the packaging end, but it's also the most expensive, and also takes up usually like a big footprint when you do want to automate. So those are some of the challenges there as well.
Sure.
In some cases, based on what raw material supplier are using, such as corrugated or tape, for instance, it may sound silly. They have engineering departments where as long as you buy their box, right, then they'll set you up with an automatic case erector and whatever else they have available. Same thing with package machines, with film, with roll stock, same thing. If you're capital strapped, but you need that package machine, there are suppliers there that will, lease that piece of equipment to you as long as you fulfill volumes based on, a time, based on time, whether it's a 3, 5, 10-year contract. Typically, 5 is about the max that people want to get into because technology changes so much. But not only with that automation equipment available, you also get rebates on your equipment, maintenance spend as well. So there's other benefits to it as well. Plus they have service agreements where they're the ones that basically are in charge of it. I mean, you have to maintain it, but when the machine goes down and their fault, if it's your machine, assuming it's not under warranty anymore, you own it. But when you have a rented piece of equipment, there are service agreements that come along with it, with the life of the equipment, where they're on the hook for getting it fixed and doing training.
For sure. So what would you say is like the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started your career in this industry?
Oh man, it's a good question. I mean, I've learned so much. I think if I were going to go back, I would have told myself, be more comprehensive with what you're learning. Probably, I think earlier in my career, I suffered. I think one of what I would tell myself is to be more patient,
right,
with people, especially. Once I got, I basically, I averaged like a promotion basically like every 2 or 3 years. I did merger and acquisition work very early in my career in Australia for 2 months. I had no business doing that. I mean, I was completely over my skis, but I had to learn on the fly. But once I kind of got more experience, probably after like 5 years, I was doing more in-house consulting for the company I was working with. And, being young, pretty aggressive, I think I could have slowed my roll a little bit and understood more of what the problem was instead of flying off the handle and trying making fixes that I thought I knew better about. So I would have been a better listener and been a little more patient with people.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's good advice. I think everybody could use that advice, in terms of listening more, patience. I mean, it's really, really important. I think people sometimes are very impatient and they don't listen well. So it's a big, big challenge. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing a good website or social media or just best way to get in contact?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's probably the best way. Yeah, it has
Awesome.
my career background, history, and I have obviously other contacts that I'm with too. So yeah, LinkedIn, Eric Napientek, EricNapientek. I'm on there often throughout the day, so go ahead and shoot me a note, and I'd love to have further networking. That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time.
Take care, man. Appreciate the
Thanks.
opportunity. Bye.
Thank you. All right, bye.